Hello and welcome everyone to the 16th episode of Across the Decades. I'm joined by my cousin-in-law, Kailey. It's good to have you on. You have the hourglass. Would you mind flipping that over?
Of course.
So, as always, before we get started, tell us what we're drinking.
We are drinking a gin and tonic.
So
Cheers.
you are the first to request this.
I am not shocked, actually.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, when I did my little taste test before this, the toothpaste was still affecting, but this tastes good. Yeah,
Okay, good.
Got a little tanker in there.
Let the toothpaste wear off.
So, again, as we just started with, the typical proceeding at the beginning, how did we meet? That's a great place to start, as always.
It's a great question, considering I don't remember.
It was too long ago.
It was. I was trying to think back, actually, and if I were to take a guess, I would say probably a Yelenosky Family function, for sure.
So time-wise, what year are we looking at? So Jackie and I started dating in 2013 in the fall.
I would guess maybe 2014?
So and you can keep me honest on this because I met so many people at this family event. I think it was 2013 Christmas.
Okay.
So Jackie's family loves hosting the Thanksgivings or Christmases with like both sides of the family.
Yep.
But I think this time it was just the Yelenosky side that was at her place.
Yeah.
And I remember it was one of those Christmases where there was like 5 inches of snow or like 5 or 6 inches. Like it was just, she was like, I really want you to come. And there was so much snow that I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to, be able to make it, but I made it out anyways. But yeah, and I met so many of like the Yelenoskys obviously that time, like that first day. But I remember that the girls liked hanging out up in Jackie's room. Like that's where everything went down. Like you, Amber. And that's where I think was the first encounter. But yeah, we have to like roll back the tape because
I was gonna say we need to look back at some photos. Right. I know Marissa.
Oh, she's got a bunch. Right. Yeah.
So you're probably in there somewhere way back when.
Now I think about it, I mean, especially because it was a family party. Yeah, that would be a good thing to check back on. But yeah, that was already 11 years ago.
Yeah. So. I was probably like 14 years old or something.
Right.
15.
Well, that's another thing we were talking about with like Sammy. Like she was so young when she first met me because you look back at some of the pictures and it's like, yeah, I think I've been there now for most of her life because she's turning 18. So yeah, that like makes sense, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I've known you for a very long time.
Yeah, and maybe this is one that you do remember is how did you meet Jackie? And maybe explain some of the lore about why you would be meeting her instead of just being like immediate family, right?
Right. So I'll take it way back when. So my mom met Marissa's mom, and they became really close friends. They were good friends in their 20s. I mean, my mom was with my dad.
Marissa's mom, you mean Jackie's mom?
Jackie's mom, sorry. Jackie's mom.
They just look so alike.
I mean, they act the same too. So Jackie's mom, Marissa, met my mom, and they became really good friends. And they knew each other throughout their 20s, into their 30s. They were always kind of a part of each other's lives. She knew my mom when my mom was still married to my dad and when she was with Mitch, obviously. And so I grew up, going to Yelenosky family parties all the time, birthdays. And so I believe we met probably very early on, maybe a couple years old on my end, maybe Jackie 5, 6, I would guess. And probably for a birthday party.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I don't have the conscious date, like this was the exact date. But I mean, I've known Jackie like my whole life.
Yeah. Jackie didn't leave that big of an impression, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly right. We would always joke that, we can't be sisters, but, later on in life we would become cousins, which is great because my mom and my dad divorced. And so then my mom met Jackie's uncle, Ron, and then they got married. And so Jackie is my step cousin, but really she's my cousin.
Yeah. I mean, you, like you said, you guys have known each other for so long that at this point it's like
we've always been family.
Yeah, you don't know, or it's not like you have memories of a time like before that aspect.
Jackie's just always been there. She's always been present.
Yeah.
So.
And throughout this time, like you always lived nearby, or was it something
Mm.
that like as time went on, you guys ended up moving closer, or what was that like?
I would say we've always kind of lived nearby.
Okay.
For as long as I can remember, she lived in Bolingbrook.
Mm.
We love Bolingbrook.
Shout out. Shout out to all the
Shout out
bowling. Yeah, I know there's some of you watching.
Bolingbrook. Exactly. And then I traveled between like Westmont, which is where my mom and my stepdad lived, and then Darien, which is where my father lived. So I switched between both those houses. But I would say it was probably 20-minute drive
Yeah.
from really either house I was at, which was nice. I mean, I always saw Jackie at birthdays, Christmases, Thanksgivings, hangouts, just for fun, like really anything. I mean, she was always there, part of my life.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's so close, like you said, like those are both southwest suburbs. It's easy access for both.
Super close.
And another thing that you two have in common is you both actually partook in karate.
Yes.
Now tell us, were you like a white belt or a blue belt?
A happy black belt. A happy, confident,
there you go.
first-degree black belt.
There you go. So yeah, what was that like? What inspired you to pursue that? And like, what are your thoughts about karate just more generally?
Yeah, great question. So Jackie started karate before I did. Her and Mitch were doing it long before I was even interested. And so one day, I believe my parents were talking, my mom was talking to Marissa, and my stepdad Ron was talking to Uncle Mitch, and they were like, you should get Kailey into karate. She might really like it.
And you're how old at this point?
I believe 13 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit older because Jackie started like
way younger than me. Yeah. Which is like the traditional route if you want to do or enroll your, child into karate. You typically start around 5 or 6 is what the age I've seen. But I started at the young age of 13.
Right. So yes, coachable.
So coachable. Yeah. But I didn't even have the thought in my mind. It was someone else. It was always exterior forces that were kind of like, you should try it, see if you like it. And the first day, I did not like it. But I kept going. And eventually I really, really enjoyed it. So
was it one of those like, we already paid for it, like you're gonna do it?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're at least gonna see this first like session out.
I wanted to give up the first day actually, because it was so hard. It was probably the hardest physical thing I'd ever done at the age of 13.
I bet.
It was different than any other sport I had done, so different to soccer, so different to tennis, so different to really anything. And so the challenge scared me as a young 13-year-old.
Right.
But eventually, like, I made friends and I was pretty good at it naturally, which was surprising on my end because I was never one to stick to a sport actually throughout my life. I would say I was, I'm kind of bored of this one. Let me try this one. But karate, I was consistent with that one.
I was gonna ask, Leah, was that like your first quote unquote sport, or had you tried others in the past? I mean, I know you just mentioned soccer and tennis. Like, what was your experience with those compared to karate?
I tried soccer. I really liked soccer. I can't remember if I did it for a year or two or not, but I know I didn't do it in high school because karate had taken over full time. But I believe I tried soccer. And I did ballet for a little bit.
Oh, you did?
I did, yeah.
That's
very
really cool.
young. I, again, didn't like a challenge. So anything that was semi-difficult, I would just give up.
Some would say ballet is hard.
I mean, it is.
It is very hard.
But I just wasn't that type of kid to give something a chance, surprisingly. So then I just kept trying different things. But at least I kept trying different things. I did Irish dancing, actually.
Really?
I did.
Do you know do you have anything up your sleeve at all? Yeah.
No. That didn't last long. I think that was the shortest one.
That one, okay.
I think I lasted a little longer in ballet because I had friends, but in Irish dancing, I was like, what is
Yeah,
this?
it's like, okay, I'm out.
I did it because, like, Ron has Irish heritage by his stepfather, so I was like, I should try it.
Yeah, why not?
See if I like it.
And then you
didn't like it.
Nope.
But then...
you live and you learn.
Exactly. I was quick to learn. So
either you're in or you're out.
Exactly. It was pretty decisive, even at the age of, it was like between the ages of 7 and 13, I would say, is when I was trying all of these different like activities and sports. So, and karate stuck.
Yeah, and it seems like it's a very wide variety, right? Like you have soccer, which is a team sport, tennis, I mean, it can be with doubles, but it's primarily singles. Dance, whether it's ballet or Irish dance, and then karate, which is a contact. So it's like I see you tried like a wide gamut. It's not like it was just, I don't know, like basketball and then volleyball and then, right, like you were actually trying a broad variety.
Right. I was, which was nice. And I think it helped me in the long run because, like, I think having those group sports and single sports mixed together kind of prepared me for karate because it can be both.
How could it be like the group aspect?
So as you go through, depending on how far you get, so I did it until I believe I was 18 or 19, got my black belt, and competed nationally. And so sometimes you can do team activities for the competition. So you can do, I believe, team katas and team fighting. So kumite, and that just means form and fighting. And so I think I never got to this level, but I believe that you can do that on a international and national level.
Wow, that's very cool. Yeah, that'd be something that would be interesting to like learn a little bit more about because I don't think I've ever seen that.
I think it's primarily popular in form, so kata. But I think you can round fight. So like one team, another team, you fight each other. Whoever wins or has the most points, I believe. It's been a while since I've done a little bit of research or seen any of the fights, but I think you can do it. Yeah.
And the fighting, would it be like takedowns or would it be
good question,
like style and like form?
So the object of fighting was never to actually hurt anyone, and contrary to belief, it's called fighting, but your objective was to always, like, if you're going to punch the face, you would want to make sure that you don't actually make contact. Not until you're at a higher black belt level, they will allow like a slight touch of the face, but it's never ever to hurt somebody. You're just there to get points. So main contact would be like your torso. And then kicking would be like torso above the head. So you would want to aim for like the shoulders or your back if you were kicking, or the head if you were going to kick like right up there. So.
And it's more so just to indicate like you could.
Yes.
Or you found an
opening.
A
light touch.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And when you make contact, you yell out like a cry.
Okay.
And you say a word and you say it with passion to kind of demand the point, basically. Like, I made contact, I earned it. Do I get the point? So it was mostly a light touch, you demanding the point, and then backing away to be like, I got away clean.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it's also interesting because Mitch has his own story where he actually ended up seriously injuring one of his opponents. I don't know if you remember the story with more. You probably remember the story with more detail than I do. Yeah, do you want to share?
And forgive me, Mitch, if I get it wrong. But
if anything, make it sound cooler. You're right. Or towards the side of making it.
I think he was still in high school, and I believe it was either at a local tournament or on the national level. I can't remember. And they were fighting, and I believe he took the kid down, like on the ground, swept him. And you can do that. That's all legal. You want to make sure that you do it in a clean way, though. Obviously, you don't want to do it in like a way where you purposefully hurt them up to take them down. So you practice clean sweeps all the time. So he swept him cleanly, and I can't remember if it was the fall that hurt broke his hand, or if it was the punch that broke his hand. But nonetheless, he broke his hand.
Yeah.
And that kid had to go to the hospital. So
yeah.
It was not a good time.
Not a good moment, yeah.
No. He felt bad though.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Obviously that's right up Mitch's alley where obviously he doesn't intend to hurt anyone, but I guess that does just come with the territory, like you said. Yes. It is fighting, and while they do take precautions, you never know what you'll get.
Accidents happen.
Yeah, accidents happen. I was actually listening to this comedian who mentioned that he actually signed up for a fighting event, not knowing that it was this sort of like karate style point oriented. And when he went in thinking that he had to like fight and take down at all costs, and it was just a hilarious skit. So
you could get fouled for that, and then kicked out of the match.
He did. Yeah. So I'll have to send that to you because Jackie thought it was super funny. But yeah, I guess as we're talking about circling back, you coming into the Yelenosky family and it being something that was at the same time that you were coming in also really organic because you were so young and you kind of grew up with that, but what was that like for you, especially as someone that was still quote unquote like coming into the family, despite being someone who's always, you've always really been there?
Yeah. I would say it was surprisingly a seamless transition. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the Yelenosky's are probably one of the most loving families I've ever met in my life. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so thankful to know them and be a part of their family. I think, of course, at any age, I mean, I was probably 7 years old when my sister was born and when my mom and my stepfather got married. And I was scared. I didn't know what life would be like with this new guy in my
Mm-hmm.
house when all I'd ever known was my father previously. So it definitely scared me. I definitely threw a little tantrum on their
Mm-hmm.
wedding day where I refused to smile for any of those photos, which now I deeply regret, but
You're also a kid, you know.
I
It's
was,
you're
yeah.
scared, and you don't know
Hmm.
what the future's gonna look like, right?
Yeah, I had no idea. And I didn't know anyone else who'd been through that like I had. I mean, I think everyone I knew still had their parents together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it was just so foreign to me and it scared me. But I mean, my stepdad was such a charmer. I mean, he knew how to talk to people. I mean, it was just so easy to talk to him. He was just the funniest guy. And so he kind of gave me space, initially and was like, I'm going to let her come to me, but would, ask me questions in the car or, we'd play
Mm-hmm.
games. Like he was never one to cross my boundaries, even though I was 7, 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I grew to really bond with him and we got super close. And I was really fortunate that he had three other brothers and we also got super close. And just the value of family is so ingrained in all of them, which is
Mm-hmm.
something I love and appreciate. So everybody kind of took me in and they never treated me differently than anyone else in that family, which I
Mm-hmm.
was so grateful for. So probably the easiest transition ever, even though at the time it was scary. But yeah, super grateful to have
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah, I know that there's this common trope of like kids are resilient, but
Hmm.
really, I mean, that is a really big moment in your life, right?
Yeah.
It's I'm sure a moment filled with like worry and anxiety, and
Hmm.
you probably don't have the words necessarily, especially at that age, to
Right.
really verbalize it.
Hmm.
But yeah, I can see, especially like you said, this is a whole nother man in the house, and
Yeah.
I don't know like what that relationship is going to look like
Hmm.
moving forward. But yeah, I think I totally agree with what you said about the
Hmm.
Yelenosky family is very loving
Hmm.
and very protective
Yeah.
about also, especially with a lot, so many girls.
Hmm.
You really see that affection from the uncles,
Yeah.
where yeah, especially uh, with someone like Alexa, who's
Hmm.
younger, or Sammy even,
Yeah.
where they just love to like dote on them, which is just so classic. But at the same time, they'll make sure that you come in with the right values and the
Oh
right
yeah.
right head on your shoulder and whatnot, and they also have fun.
Hmm.
Ping pong is one of the big
Always.
family things that unfortunately isn't something where they can have both teams
Hmm.
now. But
And pool.
yeah,
Pool in the basement.
yeah, that
Great
too.
times.
Do you have any like particular memories or stories
Mm.
regarding that or any other family event?
I feel like every family party we ever had, we'd all go into the basement.
That's where it
That's
always, yeah.
where we'd always go. Like the moms would stay up on the first floor, and we would all, the cool people, would go to the basement where we would either watch like something on the giant projector or
Mm,
play pool or ping pong, and like we would all play. It didn't matter if like the adults were playing or if the kids were playing. We would all just kind of play, which I thought was super fun.
mhm,
And there's some great memories in my previous home's basement, just
mhm,
with that. It was always super fun. Or our backyard. I remember several birthdays. We would always be outside playing on that basketball court or
mhm,
swinging on the swing set. Or one year, I'm pretty sure we had like a bouncy house. Like there was never a dull moment for any of those like family parties. It was
mhm.
always super fun.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's also just crazy to think about like how much has changed,
Mm-hmm.
not only from like just the time perspective, but so many different family movements, right?
Yeah.
Obviously now we're in the city
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking, I mean, like Jackie and I are looking at that next stage in our life too, and so
Yeah.
it's crazy to think just how much has really changed. But one of those aspects, I know we talked about it, or kind of touched on, and you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
was Ron ended up passing very
Yes.
unfortunately, and of course that did have a lasting impact on the family, still does.
Mm-hmm.
What was your, I guess, like initial reaction, and how do you think that
Mm-hmm.
that's really affected either you or maybe just like the family more generally?
Yeah. It changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just something you think about, because I remember growing up it was never not a possibility, because his father passed away from a heart attack as well, a massive one, and he
Mm-hmm.
was younger than Ron at the time. So I never didn't think about it. It was always on my mind, but you never want to believe that it could happen to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was not home. Actually, I was on vacation with my dad. We do vacations every year, which is super great.
Yeah.
And we were in Colorado, and we were in Colorado Springs. And I remember I got a phone call from my mom, and I ignored it. I was like, oh, I'm about to go to dinner with my dad. I'll call her later.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I just didn't think to pick up. And so she left me a voicemail. And that's when she told me that he had had a heart attack and passed away. And like, it didn't feel real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just sat there, and then I combusted into tears, which like never happened to me. And I would always be that type of person, be like in the movies where they cry like that. I'd be like, oh, that would never happen. That's so dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's true. Like, I quite literally combusted into tears, had the craziest cry of my life. And I remember my dad just held me, and we were trying to figure out what to do because I had to fly home.
Mm-hmm.
And I took the next flight out, and I just remember getting there at the airport, and all of my uncles were right there down the escalator. It felt such like a movie, just going down the escalator, and they're all right there waiting for
Mm-hmm.
me to take me home. And it definitely changed all of our lives. I believe my sister's the most because she was there when it happened. And that was really hard to imagine for her. For years, I wanted to take that away from her because she was just 13 years old. And so, yeah, I think we grew up really quick after that, me and her.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part about it is they don't tell you, like, yeah, you're going to be sad, but they don't tell you how other people are going to react, because grief hits people differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so, me and my sister kind of decided we're going to be resilient. He would want us to finish college. He would want us to go to college. He would want us to do the things we want to do. And it really hit my mom hard, and she just kind of was sad for a very long
Mm-hmm.
time. And it just kind of was like that for a really long time. I would say a couple of years, until she decided to move out of Illinois. And so I think she made changes for herself that helped her heal, and me
Mm-hmm.
and my sister made changes for ourselves to help us heal. It was just a very different roadmap, but I don't blame her for that. It's something that nobody tells you about grief.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it's not something that you can put on your own terms
Mhm.
because, like you said, even with your initial reaction, you might
Mhm.
think, "Oh, I would never react that way," or "That's
Never.
so not me," right?
Mhm.
But there's like an inner self that is just reacting to the world around you,
Yeah.
and it's you can even take the opposite view of it's easy to look at maybe like a war movie or a hero and be like, oh,
Mhm.
like I'm gonna like if I was in that situation, I would do the
Yep.
same thing. But you never know, right? And the
Never.
same thing happens with grief, where
Mhm.
it could take you could have your body or your initial reaction processes it immediately in the moment,
Mhm.
or it could take like a week or a month or a year, and
Yeah.
um, yeah, it can really affect people differently. But yeah, and another thing where like you said, it obviously changes the family dynamic and the
Mhm.
considerations. Do you think that and going back to what you mentioned also about like
Mhm.
growing up
Mhm.
and your sister being much younger, do you think that also changed like maybe your perspective and maybe like your relationship with her and how you perceive that?
Yeah. That's a great question. I think it did, for
Mm,
sure. I would say because we had to grow up so fast, I felt like I had to take care of her. I felt responsible for her in a way, even though like it wasn't necessarily necessary. But I felt like I owed it to her to teach her new things about life that maybe he would have,
mm-hmm,
or, ask her if she needs a ride somewhere, or just kind of be the fill in parent,
mm-hmm,
even if I was still her sister,
mm-hmm,
because I was happy to do it. Like, I wanted to, but I also think I felt like because he was gone, I needed to step kind of into that role, but not completely because you can never replace that ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, it was a serious growing up moment for sure. I remember it just kind of switched. You don't think about it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't think, oh, I need to be this person for this person.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of do it without really realizing it until you sit back and reflect, like, oh, I'm kind of sounding like my mom right now.
Right.
So you kind of have those like little light bulb moments where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm turning into my mother, my parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
and what's also sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Um, there's a sort of like parallel
yeah.
is like you mentioned, Ron's father also passed
Mhm.
very early, younger than his passing was even younger than when Ron passed, age-wise. And
Yeah.
so he also felt that burden. You can look at it as like burden or
Hmm.
responsibility or like calling to being that parental figure in a way, right? For
Yeah.
the siblings that he has, that he had at the time, and now it's something similar with you, right? Where
Yeah.
you see that parallel of like, okay, well now I have to. The dynamic has now changed
Right.
because all of a sudden, like this figure is now gone. So
Hmm.
how does that end up changing you by necessity, right?
Right.
Um, so yeah, that's. I mean, of course, it's really sad, but I think
Hmm.
in one way, I'm sure that's also helped like your relationship with your sister
Oh,
in terms of
yeah.
like bringing you closer. I would imagine that
It did.
in a new way. Of course, it's not the ideal way, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I guess what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely feel like she's my best friend in
Mm-hmm.
the whole world. Like, nobody gets me like she does. We have the same humor. We say things the same way. Like,
Mm.
we were on the street once, and this lady came up to us and she said, "You guys have the same smile," which
Oh,
is
that's
funny
nice.
because we're only half related.
Yeah.
So it's it's so funny what people say from an exterior point of view because I thought that was such a beautiful compliment for the
Mm-hmm.
both of us. And we just looked at each other and smiled. And then I
Mm-hmm.
was like, you're right. You're right. I
Yeah.
see it now. So I thought that was kind of a beautiful thing. But yeah, she's incredible. She's so smart. She's amazing. And I feel like I'm her cheerleader,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure she feels the same way. So
Is it a sort of balance, have you noticed, in terms of because of the age difference? I think you
mm,
said it's like 7 years.
yeah.
Is it a sort of um, relationship where maybe she comes to you more for advice, or is
Mm,
it more of like an open dialogue? Because of course you still are sisters, right?
right.
Or is it kind of a mixture between the two?
Yeah, I would say it's both. I would
Mm,
say sometimes she'll call me and be like, "Hey, I need help with this one thing, or I need
mm,
your advice on this argument I'm in with this person," and
mm.
kind of life advice, right? And then there are other times where she'll send me her Google Doc and she goes, "Can you edit this paper for me, please? I got a 24-hour deadline," or
Right.
something like that, which I'm happy to do it anytime.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll ask her questions in like the little comments being like, how can we make this better, so I don't do the assignment for her. But
Right.
sometimes I'm like, you gotta rewrite this whole sentence, and then I'll just rewrite the whole sentence.
You might be losing a job soon with AI and
Yeah.
ChatGPT. Who knows? I know that that's been like a big contentious topic. I mean, she's in college
Hmm.
now. But yeah, I mean, when we were in college, like that was never,
Never even a thing,
yeah.
which is crazy.
But so much has changed, obviously. You went to
Hmm.
University of Illinois.
Yeah.
Your sister obviously went out of state, but
Hmm.
there's uh, enough similarities despite the technology to be like, okay, well, do
Yeah,
this or do that. But yeah, I guess you went to college during a really interesting time period.
I did.
Um, COVID. You
Hmm.
was during your junior year.
Yes. So, interesting thing about me is I did 2 years of community college and then 3 years of school at
Oh, okay.
the University of Illinois.
Hmm.
So I was technically a fifth year, but I was happy to do that.
Hmm.
Last year I was not ready to graduate, especially during a pandemic, which
Right.
did happen. I believe my junior year. Yeah. So that dynamic going from a normal to first years of
Mm.
having fun, I'm going out, I'm meeting friends, I'm
Mm.
joining clubs, to don't leave your house.
Right.
Don't do anything. You're sad all the time.
Mm.
And I was actually abroad when it happened. So when the world
Mm.
shut down,
In
sort
March.
of, yeah.
Mm.
So I was studying abroad in Italy and Florence. and we had gotten the email. I was in a club. I was dancing. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like a karaoke bar club. And we got an email saying, you need to leave Italy. Like you have to leave. The pandemic is getting worse. Like
That's a crazy notification to get. Like an
it was
email notification in an Italian club.
literally, which was, we were like, no way. No
Yeah.
way. We didn't believe it. We were in such a massive state of denial. Like, we were like, no.
This is like one of those scam emails where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm a Nigerian prince. Please send me money. It's
Send me
like, yeah,
money.
there's no way this is real.
That's how it went down. And I was like, I'm not, I don't know how this could possibly be real. So I left Italy. I went to England to just kind of escape from the world, really, because they didn't have as many cases as the rest of Europe, and
Mm.
Italy had already shut down. Their whole borders were closed. And so I wanted a little bit of normalcy before going back to the States and kind of knowing that my life is going to change forever.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
I'm going to be stuck in a house. I need to, go outside every once in a while so I could touch grass. Like,
Yeah.
it was going to be completely different. And so those 2 years after were rough. I mean, I'm sure anyone can attest that, like, it was hard to go from normalcy to completely
Mm.
isolation. So those were my last 2 years. I studied hard. I graduated. I did nothing.
Yeah. Were
um,
you in an apartment? Because
I was.
yeah, you weren't at the dorms or anything like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was living with my best friend, Macy,
Mm.
shout out.
Hmm.
And we lived together, I believe 2 years together at that point. That was the second year. And we were like, we just it needs to be just us. Let's do it. Let's have fun. And we made our own fun
Mm.
during that time. I mean, we would paint, watch movies, play games. I think we played a lot of Mario Kart
Oh
at
yeah,
the time.
everyone immediately like ordered a Peloton
Yes.
or bought like Jackbox party
Yes,
packs or
yes.
board games. Like
Card games.
people found ways to entertain
Oh
themselves.
yeah. It was an interesting last year, especially senior year, because
Mm.
like you don't expect your senior year to be, you don't want to get your friends sick, you don't want to
Yeah.
go out, you have to wear a mask everywhere. Like it was not what I expected for my senior year, but we made it through.
Were
So
there? I mean, I would imagine, but were there people that like didn't care and like protested anyway and just did whatever? What was
100%.
that like in terms
100%.
of like like were there people that judged that heavily
Mm,
and like kind of demanded that there be some sort of like penalty for that or like what
yeah.
was it or was it kind of like okay well if you're just gonna do it that's fine.
Right. I would say there was a little bit of everything. I
Okay.
mean, U of I is such a huge campus, so I feel like you have such a diverse
Hmm.
population. And I would say that there were some party goers that would go out to the bars every weekend. There were some people who would have small gatherings with their friends.
Hmm.
There were some people who were constantly checking to see if you had gotten tested because U of I had the
Hmm.
spit test and you could see someone's status. So if you ask them, like, hey, show me if you're red, which means you hadn't gotten tested in like 3 days.
3 days.
You had to do it, I believe, every 48 hours to go to in person classes, be on certain academic things, join clubs, certain things like that, get into the gym. You had
What?
to have, yeah, like I think it was yellow was good and red was bad. I think orange was you need to test soon. So it was a
What?
very interesting dynamic. I would say there was different type of person for every single kind of scenario. So
Yeah, I remember reading that U of I was like really pushing the
mhm.
technology aspect.
Yes,
But that seems like a lot. I mean,
it
obviously now
was.
as looking back on it, I mean, that just seems
Hmm.
ridiculous. Like
Hmm.
to think about how we were just so like
Yeah,
locked up and it was
doesn't
just
feel real.
yeah, it was a crazy moment in history.
Hmm.
But I mean, obviously, like back then, a lot of people were concerned, and there were a
Right.
lot of health effects and whatnot. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's just like striking that balance of, you know, obviously there's the threat of illness and whatnot, which
Right.
is one side, but also on the other hand, you had people that were, of course, like really sad. It's
Yeah.
easy to be depressed or anxious because of
Hmm.
everything that's going on around you, and you kind of have to strike that balance of like, okay, well,
Right.
at what point is it just like this? Are we maybe causing a greater harm from
Right.
people that are just so anxious and
Mm-hmm.
so like locked up that they're going crazy, right?
Right.
Which, especially like you were saying,
Mm-hmm.
college is a really unique point in like someone's life where
Yeah.
that's a really social aspect. That's,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of connections that can be made.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that that also spills into like from a graduation into the workplace. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was that like in terms of making that transfer from college to the workplace during the COVID era?
That was hard.
Yeah.
Probably one of the hardest transitions. Like they always tell you post grad is going to be a time of reflection, a time
Mm,
of adjustment, a time of like, oh, I'm kind of sad because I miss college. But for me it was just hard. I couldn't get a job
mm,
and you basically had to apply to like 50 places just to even get like 4 or 5 responses back. It was brutal. And I think it took a very long time for me to get a job after college. And I think that was
mhm,
just because of the pandemic. Nobody was really hiring.
mhm,
And so I just tried to do everything I could. I did my own internship since there were no internships. I kind of did that for myself where I helped build a logo for a friend and kind of talked through that process and put it on my website. And so I needed to kind of create my own success, which it helped, but the pandemic really hurt a lot of people who graduated in 2020 and 2021.
mhm.
It was just a really, really rough time.
So just to make sure I got it right,
Hmm.
you majored in was it graphic design?
Graphic design.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes.
Was there a
Nope.
minor? Okay.
Nope.
So from a graphic design standpoint, I mean, I know that there is some opportunity, like you said, in terms of
Hmm.
finding maybe like little, well, not little, but like small, maybe smaller businesses or
Yes.
like helping out with some organizations that maybe don't have the funds
Hmm.
and whatnot. But yeah, I would imagine in terms of especially the area where graphic design is probably employed more is on like
Hmm.
the newer products,
Yeah.
the expanding a portfolio or like
Hmm.
entering a business segment where they don't have right
Right.
media content or assets or stuff like that. So yeah, I could totally
Hmm.
see where that's difficult. When did you start to feel like things started picking up again? I mean, was
Mm.
it like a couple months? Was it like a year?
I would say close to a year did
Mm,
I find a job and feel comfortable in it because that was like my first job out of not high school, college, out of college, and it just felt unnatural, honestly, because I went to work in a place where I thought I would never work, which was in financial services, which if you are a graphic designer or if you are in the art space at all, you really want to be anywhere else.
mm,
You want to be working at an ad agency, a
mhm.
design agency, maybe for a cool brand,
Right.
maybe a fun startup. You don't want to be in
The
yeah.
corporate, yeah, like
It's just less creative in nature. Not
right.
that that's a bad thing, but if you're looking for that, which I feel like a lot of artists are, we kind of crave
Hmm.
the creative challenge. I would say it wasn't a job I wanted, but it was a job I needed.
Hmm.
It taught me a lot. I grew a lot as a person, but it was, I would say, a stepping stone for
Hmm.
sure. And I knew that when I took the job. So from there, I feel like it was only up.
What was it that drew you to graphic design in the first place?
Mm, that's a great question. Because I didn't even know for the longest time.
Mm.
I didn't know graphic design was a thing until probably senior year of high school.
Hmm.
Other than that, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was so confused,
Hmm.
so worrisome. And then I joined yearbook club in high school. And I kind of was like, can we edit these pages more? Can I
Mm.
move things around more?
Right.
Can I add my own little icons?
Hmm.
Which I did. And that was so fun. And I was like, there's got to be a name for this
Right.
because I had no idea. I was like, yearbook is not a job.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of did a little bit of research and found that it was graphic design. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Even though I'd always loved art as a kid, but
Hmm.
I never thought I could do it as a job because they always say, oh, starving artist, right? Like
Hmm.
you can do it, but you will be poor, maybe.
Yeah. I think like Van Gogh died
Yeah.
I don't know if like in abject poverty, but I think he was
Hmm.
pretty poor. And then it was
Right.
only until later they were like, oh, he like
Hmm.
Starry Night and everything, you know.
Yeah, which is crazy because
Hmm.
like one of the most iconic painters ever,
Right.
right? So yeah, I kind of fell into it on accident and have loved it ever since.
Mm. And when you look at in terms of like, it seems like what drew you was more of the um, practical elements, right? Like you
Hmm.
said, like I want to move this, I want to move that,
Yeah.
and then it seems like from there it started to expand into the creative, right? So
Yeah.
like, okay, well now that I know I can do this, now I
Hmm.
want to put my personal touch on it.
Hmm.
What is your like? Do you have a sort of philosophy when it comes to maybe not like graphic design, but just art more generally? Like, are there particular
Hmm.
styles that you like, or artists that you look up to, or you feel like influence the way that you think about graphic design?
Yeah. So I love painters.
Okay.
I'm not a good painter, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I also, yeah, you can love a thing. Like I love great soccer players, and
Yeah.
I'm nowhere near that.
It that is how I feel is like I love painters, but I paint, but
Mm.
I'm no Van Gogh, right? And so I would say Monet, definitely
Oh,
one
okay.
of my favorite artists. I think I love that time period of art in general. It's just so painterly, so
Is
beautiful.
that impressionism?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Mm.
Impressionism. And there's a lot of great artists in that category. But I remember they had an exhibit at the Art Institute and I had to go see it. It was
Mm.
just
Mm.
so great. And I hadn't seen that many Monets in person. Um, so I would say I really enjoy that. I would say also I love digital art. I have an iPad and I digitally draw,
Mm.
though I haven't drawn in a very long time. I should get back into it. But I would say there's not one specific digital artist I love. I just kind of love a lot of different styles. There's
Mhm.
really cool. It's always changing too, which is super awesome. I think that's why I don't have a favorite is because
Mhm.
the styles are ever changing and I'll have one favorite artist one day and then another favorite artist the next just because I admire some of their work so much.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say definitely something from the past and definitely something from the
Mhm.
future are things that I really, really love. I could never draw, so I didn't really dabble into any cool drawers specifically with like charcoal
Mhm.
or other like pastels, but that's another great medium. But yeah.
What are your thoughts on AI in terms of
Ooh.
creating art? Do you think that is art?
Ooh, that's a tough
Mm.
question because I feel like AI draws from actual artists and people and things like that. So I feel like it draws from things that were created by artists.
Mhm.
I don't know if I would say it in and of itself is an artist because a lot of things can make art, but oh, it's such a tough question, you
Mhm.
know. It's definitely something I would have to think about. But I'm gonna go with no, it's not an
Okay.
artist, but it does draw
Mhm.
from artists. So there's my stance,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree with I think the sentiment that you're drawing on, which is
Yes.
art and really anything
Hmm.
is more than just a sum of its pieces.
Yes.
Where really what makes something beautiful isn't
Hmm.
just the like happenstance combination of things.
Right.
It's an intentional
Hmm.
pouring, I mean, ideally pouring of one's soul into
Yes.
something where
It's beautiful.
you get to actually know not just the artwork itself and what it intends, but you actually get to know
Hmm.
something about the artist, right?
Right.
Where it transmits something about the way that they see the world or what they
Hmm.
believe in or how they are pushing a boundary, whether it's like you said, like
Yeah.
a different medium or a different
Hmm.
um, color scheme or pattern, like
Yeah.
what Picasso did when he was
Hmm.
in his high point, and revolutionizing art that way. Like, sure, AI can
Hmm.
generate something that's art like, but
Right.
it's not art. In the
Yeah.
same way that I kind of think about certain processed foods where they're
Hmm.
food
Yeah.
like a Twinkie is like a food, but it's not like
It's not
actually food.
actual
Yeah,
food. Yeah.
because yeah, it's not something like there's no human component. And I think
Hmm.
you do need that both for
Yeah.
the music or any sort of visual art, paintings,
Hmm.
right? But also, um, yeah, anything that may also requires like affection or
Yes.
there's also that notion of like when grandma cooks it with love,
Yes.
like sure, machines can quote unquote make food,
Right.
but
It's
it's
got
not
no
like a
soul.
meal, right?
Yeah.
So that's something I
Hmm.
wonder about, and I wanted to get your take on.
Yeah.
Um, Switching gears a little bit, I know
Okay.
you touched on your experience in Italy,
Hmm.
but more broadly, I know that traveling is something you like
Yeah.
to do. Where have you been, and where are you planning? If you have any plans, like
Mm.
where are you thinking about going?
Oh, I love talking about travel.
Hmm.
So I kind of wanted to make up for my lost time
Hmm.
during the pandemic because my study abroad was cut short. So I've been to Italy, I've been to Canada, I've been to Portugal, I've been to England several times, and I've been to Vietnam. I believe that's all of them. So I'd love to go to more places.
Definitely very varied in terms of
Oh
even
yeah.
like Vietnam is a
Yep.
completely other side of the world from Europe. So
Right. I'm always down to try new places, go
Puerto Rico,
many times.
yeah,
Many, many times. I love Puerto Rico, shout my Puerto Ricans.
yeah, right.
And I would say, yeah, I'd love to. I want to go more. I plan on going to Germany to visit
Oh yeah.
Mitchie. So that's definitely on the books. I'd love to go to Mexico.
Hmm.
My company has a office in Mexico City,
Oh,
so
nice.
I'd love to work from the office and explore a little bit. We've got
Mm.
coworkers there that are wonderful, so I think I would have a great time there. But those are definitely two I plan on 2025 for
Immediate, yeah.
sure. Immediate. I would say some I would really like future goal maybe. Australia would be cool.
Mm.
New Zealand would be cool. I would love to do Southeast Asia, so like the Philippines
Oh.
or yeah, I've heard wonderful things about those
Hmm.
islands. Thailand, even though that's kind of a little popular and cliche,
Hmm.
but I would love to go there. I'd love to travel more in Europe too, so I'd love to go to Spain
Yeah.
and Switzerland and other cool places in Europe. Yeah, there's so much of the world I want to see, and I feel like I take that inspiration from my aunt.
Sure.
She is the coolest person I know. She has traveled all over the world. She's got this map in her house. She's got pins in
Really?
all of the places her and her husband have been together, just her and just him, which is so cool because they're such world travelers, and
Hmm.
I so aspire to be like her. She's been to the coolest
I
places.
bet.
Yeah.
Globetrotters.
Yeah. It's
I-
awesome.
If you had, like, let's say you got a blank check right now, you can go
Mm.
wherever you want in the world.
Oh,
Where would you go?
that's a great question. I don't even think I could pick just one. I would want to
You gotta pick one.
split the check.
You gotta pick one. You gotta pick one.
Okay. That's so tough. Maybe Japan?
Ooh,
I think
okay.
that would be
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
I know a lot of people are going to Japan, but for a good reason. It's
Yeah.
super
No, yeah, yeah.
cool. So I would say Japan. I want to
Mhm.
experience more of Asia. I feel like that's super cool.
I was gonna ask, yeah, what was it that drew you to Vietnam?
Definitely a lot of reasons. I mean, it was so out of my comfort zone.
Mm.
I had no idea what to expect going there. I had people that either thought it was super cool or kind of weird. They're like, "Why would you go to Vietnam?" And I was like, "It's completely different than any other place I've ever been to." So I would say is the main reason why I went is I want to experience something so new that kind of scares me a little,
Hmm.
but I know I'll have fun. Like I know it'll be a great experience, and it was. It was awesome.
What would you say was the most surprising thing about your trip to Vietnam?
Oh, how nice the people were.
Really?
They were the friendliest people I'd ever met. They would just go up and talk to you. Had no like worries or scares. They would just like, and they would speak English. They would just say a couple words here and
Yeah.
there. They'd be like, "Oh, you're so cute in height, like me."
Knowing that you were American?
Yeah,
Wow. I
yeah.
actually think I may have heard that once where,
Mm,
yeah, the way that Americans are treated in Vietnam is like
mm.
surprisingly good, of
Yeah,
course, given the history.
yeah.
So I wasn't sure if, yeah,
Great experience with the people. Great food
I was gonna
too.
ask, yeah, the food.
Yeah. They have these little, I would say like food stalls that are outside. So like food vendors that are just completely outside. And you can sit in these little, they're kids' plastic chairs that you're sitting
Hmm.
in. And so you're like super low to the ground, you're eating your pho, and you're just kind of appreciating the busyness that is all around
Oh, I
you.
bet.
Yeah, it was a very fun experience. Great food though. Some of the best food I had was probably like the cheapest food I'll ever eat. Like,
That's tends to be the case.
yeah.
If you go to Mexico, it's like the same thing.
Hmm.
Um, Now, you also mentioned earlier that you go on trips with your dad.
I
Are
do.
those primarily domestic, international,
So
or
we've
domestic or international?
Yeah, we've gone to Canada together.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went to Vancouver. We did that with my grandmother, and that was really fun. And I would say the most part, they're domestic. So
Mhm.
I've been to about 38 states out of 50.
38?
Yeah, I'd love to do all 50.
That's wow, that's
Yeah.
nice.
hmm
What would be, or I guess, which was your most recent trip?
We went to New Mexico to see the balloon fiesta, so the hot air balloon
Oh yeah,
festival.
yeah, you were just there, yeah.
Yeah, it was the most magical
Oh,
experience
you're gonna need to show me some
ever. Oh,
pictures
I
of it.
will.
Yeah.
Well, I'll show you some for sure. Um, we'd get up super early, so like 6 a.m. maybe, get there 7, and they light them all up and they fly into the air, and you feel like a kid again, just like bright-eyed and happy, and you're just like watching them all float away. It was super fun. They had different like
Mhm.
colors and shapes, and they had animals, and it was super fun. So,
How did the two of you make a decision on which state
mm.
is gonna be your next
So
destination?
that one was on our bucket list together.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of throw things out there. I'll be like,
Mhm.
do you want to go to California? Do you want to go to Florida? Do you want to go to Texas? Just naming literally all of
Yeah.
the big states. But we talk about it. We
Okay.
kind of throw things out there and then we kind of figure it out from there. So like future trips with my dad, I would say we want to go to Mammoth Cave, which is a
Mm.
national park. I forget what state that's in
Okay.
exactly, but it is this really cool cave system. And
Cool.
so we're also trying to hit national parks as well together.
Nice.
And so we kind of start with maybe an activity or a state that we really like have interest in seeing or haven't been to before and see what it has to like offer.
Mhm.
So I know I really wanted to go to Charleston because I was super into like the what was it, haunted. Same with Savannah, Georgia.
Right.
I was like, are we staying in a hotel that was
Yeah.
like a Civil War hospital? Yeah, we did. So
Nice.
there was a lot of fun little aspects we would do
Yeah, yeah.
together, but it kind of starts with a small idea of, oh, I really want to go see that one thing, or we haven't been to this state
Mhm.
yet. So,
Is that, I guess, what has your experience been like in terms of like maybe building that relationship with your dad through these trips? Like, is that
mm,
something that you think brings out like a unique aspect in your relationship, given that you guys are
yeah.
traveling instead of maybe just being like within the Chicago suburbs?
Yeah, I would say experiencing things together is super cool
Hmm.
because he has told me, oh, well, if I don't go with you, I won't go.
Mm-hmm.
He said that recently to me, actually. And I was like, oh, Dad, I want you to do things, just you too. But obviously, it's more fun when you travel with,
Yeah.
the people you love. So, yeah, I would say that we definitely we're so similar. So sometimes we'll, butt heads, but we really enjoy these trips together. It's something we love to do. It's
Hmm.
something I've continued to ask him, like, do you want to go here? Or he'll ask me, do you want a next trip? Maybe we go international. Like,
Hmm.
it's definitely brought us closer together. It was something his father told him, like, hey,
Mm.
take Kailey on trips, make these memories because you won't regret it. And I always thought that was beautiful. So it started with my grandfather.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. Yeah, how did he get that idea? And I guess how long have you guys been doing it?
Since I was like 7 or 8 years old,
Oh wow.
very young. First trip we ever went to was to North and South Dakota,
Okay.
which wow, right? You wouldn't think like, oh,
Geography
I
is yeah.
want to go there, especially at the crisp age of 8 years old. But my grandparents lived there, my great
Oh.
grandparents, and so we went to go see them. We did a little road trip and stopped on at some national parks along the
Hmm.
way, and it was a cute little trip that I remember to this day. So that's how it started.
Did you see Mount Rushmore?
We did.
Nice.
I do remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it's a rock
With faces on
with
it.
faces on it.
What would be, what do you think is the most underrated state from the ones you've seen?
Mm, excellent question. Because I feel like I have several.
Mm.
I would say
Okay,
Idaho.
give two.
I'll give two.
Okay.
Idaho for sure, because it's actually quite beautiful, sandwiched between Montana and Washington State. And
Hmm.
so you kind of forget about it because you
Hmm.
always hear about like Glacier National Park in Montana and oh, Seattle and Washington. But nobody really thinks about Idaho. And there's some great little parts of Idaho.
Hmm.
Definitely that one. And I would say, oh, that's so tough. I really loved Delaware, actually.
Delaware.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that is
Small little
underrated.
state.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I believe this island is off the coast of Delaware, but don't quote me on that.
Hmm.
And it's called Chickachig Island, and it has a bunch of wild horses on it. So we went there, and it was beautiful. And
Wow.
Delaware was pleasantly charming and nice and quaint. And
Best kept
I like the
secret.
East Coast, so it was great. Yeah.
Wow, that's very cool.
Hmm.
Separately, have you I think I'm trying to think.
Hmm.
I can't picture or I can't remember an instance, but I'm sure you've been to Kentucky, right, to visit.
Yes.
Okay. What's
Yes.
your experience going to, is it Eastern Kentucky?
So I'm gonna be so for real with you. I don't remember much. I remember going to the Louisville Sluggers Museum. I think that's where the baseball bats are made.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I guess I was talking more about like visiting your sister.
Oh, in Tennessee.
Oh, that's Tennessee. I thought it was Eastern Kentucky. Okay, wait, that's Eastern
No,
Tennessee. Okay,
it's
okay.
she lives in Knoxville, which is on the other side of the state. So Nashville is like super close, like 6 hour
Mhm.
drive, but on the other side of the state is Knoxville.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, Knoxville.
Yes.
Okay. And
So,
yeah, I'm trying to like I don't remember you saying you're going, but I would imagine you've been.
oh, I've been.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. Several times, twice. And it's a long car ride, let me tell
You
you.
drove?
One of the first times we drove with all of my mom's stuff to help her move
Oh, yeah, yeah.
in. So we did that, and I went with Uncle John and Uncle Andy, and I think Uncle Mitch came as well, and I would just hop between the cars. But uh it's cool because you get to see the landscape change. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of beautiful, and I do like Tennessee. I think it's kind of underrated like once you get past Nashville.
Yeah,
So
because
if
it's
you
a lot of flatlands, right? And
yeah.
then once you
And then
get
it gets super curvy, super
right.
mountainous. I believe there's a mountain range over there. I can't remember
Yeah,
what it is.
The Appalachia.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. And so I've enjoyed my time there.
Hmm.
It's definitely different, lots of fried food, charming southern
Yeah.
hospitality. Like it's different for sure, which I
Hmm.
wouldn't have expected as much because it's in the middle of the country. So I thought, oh, it's not super south, but it is.
Hmm.
It kind of has some of that those aspects to it.
Yeah.
So,
And your sister's been settling in and
mhm.
everything, and of course your mom also found like a great opportunity there.
Yep.
Like, how have you seen, obviously from afar, but how have you noticed them like settling into, that move?
Yeah. So it was definitely an adjustment for both of them, I would
Hmm.
say. Like my sister was still in high school. She had 2 more years left. So she was adjusting to new town, new people.
Hmm.
And then my mom was trying to get a job. So she was job hunting and like kind of willing to say yes to anything, which, you have to do what you have to do to pay the bills. So she was kind of figuring it out as she went. So I was very proud of her that she kind of never gave up. So she would do definitely different jobs that she'd never done. So she worked at a grocery store, she worked as like an
Hmm.
office assistant, and now she works at the University of Tennessee in their housing office. So
Hmm.
she kind of found a job that she likes and is super happy there. They're both super happy there.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think your sister would want to stay there like mid to long term?
Ooh. Selfishly, I would want her to come here. Selfishly, I want her to come back
Hmm.
up here. But I don't know what she'll do. We've talked about it, and she's said, "Oh, I would love to live here for a time. I'd love to
Hmm.
try a new place. I'd love to just do something else." So maybe she'll stay there for a little, but I can see her sprouting her wings and definitely going to a new state,
Hmm.
coming back up here. I feel like she's thinking the world is my oyster.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we'll
yeah, yeah.
see.
And definitely at that age, like that's when, once you graduate, it's where you're looking at
Hmm.
taking risks,
Yeah.
opportunities, and seeing like, okay, what can I do to contribute and like give
Hmm.
back, and what are my skills, and is it
Yeah.
here? Is it somewhere else? Is it
Totally.
back home? Here in the Chicagoland area.
Right here.
Right, yeah,
It's
right
right
here
here.
in this podcast chair. We got to get her on. But yeah, no, I think that's super interesting because, um, yeah, obviously she's also very good at tennis.
Yeah,
So
she's a star.
I wonder if also like the weather is an aspect,
Right.
because obviously you can play tennis outdoors for
Hmm.
much longer down there. Um, so yeah, that's super interesting. But bringing it back to the Chicagoland area,
Yes.
you are actually a recent trivia winner
Yeah.
at a bar on Milwaukee.
Yep.
So
shout out Standard.
Yeah, tell us about trivia night and what that's been like.
Oh, I love going to trivia. So it kind of started because we met our downstairs neighbor, and she would go to trivia with her boyfriend and her friends. And she was like, "You should totally come." Shout out Megan. You should totally come and join us for trivia. We go every Tuesday. And so she invited us. We went, had a great time. Me and my roommate Sharon. Shout out Sharon.
Shout out Sharon.
Shout out Sharon. We all went and just have not stopped going since. And that was a year ago. And we've been going every Tuesday just about ever since. And there's a tournament of champions. So if you can either get I believe it's like, I forget the name exactly, but you don't qualify with your own points, but you got like picked out of a group of other teams just on a whim. There's a term for that. I'm sure somebody knows what I'm talking about. But so we've been to the Tournament of Champions twice, and we've won trivia once. And it's What Do You Know trivia. So it's just a bunch of different categories. It could be history, it could be pop culture related, so movies, it could be geography. There's so many endless categories. It's definitely broadened my horizons. I pay attention more. I'm like, this movie came out in 2021 with this actor and this actress, and he won an Academy Award for this. Like, you have to know that level of detail for some of these questions to get them right.
You're just plugged in now.
I'm locked in.
Yeah.
I was horrible before, but I feel like I've definitely like fallen into a couple categories of which I'm not horrible at. So
what are your strong suits?
I feel like that's so hard because some days I win them and some days I lose them. So I'll tell you the ones I like.
Okay.
I like geography, though I would love to get better. So U.S. geography they ask about, and then really world geography. It can even be specific regions of like Africa or Europe or Asia. So I try to expand my knowledge there. Music is a fun topic because it'll be like, this song came out in this year, name X, Y, and Z that also topped the charts that were like number 2, number 3.
Wow.
It's that specific. So
that's also, it sounds kind of fun though, because you kind of remember like that time period.
Yes, you do. And then you're kind of kicking yourself because you're like, that was like 3 years ago. Why don't I remember that? So super fun. I would say those are cool categories, but we've been trying to get better at like U.S. presidents. Sharon learned a song, which was cool. And capitals, state capitals, those will get you.
Sammy knows them all.
And I'm not shocked.
Yeah, she knows them all.
She needs to teach me.
Quiz her on any
kidding.
day. Yeah.
Worse.
Maybe a good little trivia to ask the audience that's watching.
Yep.
When you won the trivia,
yep.
that big moment for you guys when you won. What was the final question?
There were 2.
Okay.
I don't remember one of them. I'm gonna try and remember the first one. You would think I would be able to pinpoint it, right? But it was such a crazy amount of like burst of joy.
Adrenaline.
I blacked out. Like I can't remember anything past like halftime.
Right.
So I believe it was the Instagram question where what was the most followed organization on Instagram? And it was...
Hold on. We'll give them like 5 seconds. Most followed organization on Instagram.
Yes.
And this is something...
I believe on a national level, but could also be like international.
Yeah. Do they give hints?
Yeah, there's a big description.
Okay.
I'm just only remembering like part of the question.
So it is national, but of course, for it to be the most followed, like that means people are interested in it.
Yes, in other countries, And we thought it was National Geographic. It was not. It was NASA.
When you asked me this question, I thought it was the Olympics.
Which was a great guess.
And unfortunately...
It was a great guess. I would have thought something along those lines as well. Like, it's global, lots of countries, Yeah,
but NASA, they have some cool stuff up there. So their Instagram is pretty cool. So
I do follow it.
Yeah, right.
Do you follow it?
No, but Jackie showed me. Yeah.
Yeah.
After you told us that, I was like, really, NASA? And then I was like, oh, I see why it's NASA.
You get it, right? It clicks
Right.
after. And we didn't even put, so you can put 12 points on each question. That's like the max you can wage. Yeah.
Okay.
And we were like, oh, let's do 6. Let's be safe.
Mm.
And then the other question, we also put 6 because we weren't 100% sure.
Mm.
And it's coming in one by one. The teams, we're getting closer, and we look at each other and we're like, we could win this.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah.
wait. And then our name was number 1. And we just like erupted into just laughing, and like I was laughing so hard I started crying because I was like, I can't see. It was just the most fun moment.
Oh, I bet.
Pure joy.
And perfect segue into a fun question.
Amazing.
So this is a little segment that actually your roommate Maddie started.
Oh, perfect.
Where
shout out Maddie.
There would be now questions from the previous guest for the upcoming guest.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So
perfect.
The previous guest was John, also known as Jamantha.
Hey, Jamantha.
Unbeknownst to him is the guest. So he doesn't know who the guest is. He just threw out a fun question.
Okay.
And so his fun question, which is, what is either like a recent show that you're watching that you really like, or just a show that you recommend that others should watch?
It's a great question because I do love TV
Only one
shows. I know.
And then give why, and give like a little description, maybe like a TV ad.
Okay.
Pitch it.
Oh, pitch it. Yeah. That is so hard because I love so many TV shows. I think I kind of have to go with a classic in my eyes, which is NCIS. I don't know if you're familiar. Mm-hmm. So it is a criminal show. It's been on TV for years. Like, it was one of my stepdad's favorite shows. He got me into it. So I feel like this all kind of ties in together beautifully here. Yeah. But that show I have watched since I was like 12.
I bet, yeah. I mean,
going on since. Yeah. It was gone in like I think early 2000s, and then it's still going. Yeah. But I would say it's your typical crime show, whodunit, dead body, right. You know, a little bit of relationships that go through all the characters. Like, some people pass away, some people like have experienced loss. It's actually quite a beautiful show in its own right, like aside from people dying. But I would say
that's life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It gives a good depiction of life outside of the whodunit. So and maybe I'm biased because it was my stepdad's favorite show, but I have loved it for years.
Years and years. I actually really like that because, like, to your point, it is a quote-unquote, like, simple, straightforward plot.
Yes.
But the fact that it has endured so long is just a testament to it's actually a good idea.
It's a good TV show.
It's straightforward. It's easy to follow. You don't have to keep up like that much, but at the same time, if you do keep up, you are rewarded because you know about the dynamics between the different characters. And it's just, you can easily jump in and jump out, right? It's the plots are usually contained within the episode, and it's just
my comfort show.
And it's pretty creative too. Like, it's so surprising how, like, it's never the same plot. Like, there's like 10 million ways to kill someone apparently, because
they don't get bored on that show. They find ways to kill somebody in a crazy way. So
my mom is a big fan of like criminal investigation, police shows. So,
I love it.
Yeah, I definitely grew up like seeing that pretty frequently. So that was John's fun question, but now my surprise question, which I always ask all of my guests a question that they weren't expecting. So this also ties in a little bit into some of the previous topics, but who are 3 people you look up to and why?
Wow. Nobody can get mad at me for this one. No one's allowed to get mad at me. That is so hard. That's like picking your favorite people. You know what I mean? But in no particular order.
Let's say it can be personal or impersonal. Like, it can be a celebrity or someone that you just admire from having been exposed to them, dead or alive, you know. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, who are you closest with? So let's whoever's watching, you know.
Nobody's allowed to get mad. I would definitely, I feel like where my mind first went when you asked that question was family for sure. So one family member I would say is definitely my Uncle John.
Hmm.
I feel like he does remind me so much of my stepdad in different ways. Like he's not the same person,
Hmm.
obviously, but I would say they are very similar in how they take care of their family members, how we laugh together. We recently just hung out, so that's definitely where my mind went, where definitely somebody to look up to. I really admire the way he takes care of other people, for sure. It's something that makes me reflect on myself, where like I want to go out of my way for other people. I want to take care of people. I want to like spend my money on people because I love them. So I would say him for sure.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. I would say, hmm. I feel like all of these are going to be family just because I think for me, family is so important and has just always been a key part of my life. I think a key part of who I am.
Hmm.
I would definitely say my Aunt Eden.
Mm.
She has taught me to be independent and she lives her life. She's got her own house. She just does things independently and isn't scared to do them. And so I really try to think of her when I like say go somewhere alone that's new to
Mm.
me. Try to think of like, well, my Aunt Eden, she would really she would kill it.
No bias because of the name.
No bias. No bias. But yeah, she's awesome. And then the third person. That's tough.
Hmm.
That's so hard. Because there's so many good people
And
in my life.
and this is just going to be one of those situations where as soon as we cut the camera, you're like, "Oh, I can't believe I didn't think of this
I
person." Yeah.
know, I know. Especially because I'm trying to think of like figures that have like inspired me maybe
Hmm.
or things like that. That is so hard. Oh, I've got one. Okay. My first ever karate instructor.
Ooh.
He was the man. He reminded me a lot of my uncles, in which he wanted to make us tough. He wanted to
Hmm.
make us strong women, and he focused on that in his classes.
Hmm.
He would have the men line up and the women in line to fight, and we would punch them as hard as we could, like literally.
That was just no holds bar.
Yes,
Yeah.
no holding back. And he would put like the big tough guys in the
Sure.
front, and he would ask them, "Are you okay? You can handle it, but I'm gonna ask you, are you okay?" And he would just make us really strong. And that was his
Hmm.
main focus, which a lot of other instructors were not like that. They were just, you're here for karate and this is what you do. But he was like, you girls, you're going to be my strong girls,
Mm.
which was super cool. So he was really a key part of growing up for sure. And I went to visit him after I like graduated
Oh,
college
that's nice.
and he teared up. I'd never seen that man get emotional. He was Mr.
Uh,
Tough Guy.
yeah.
So it was cool to see him again. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's actually, well, one, I think a testament to like just how influential instructors or mentors or
Mhm.
teachers really are when they're
Yeah.
like shaping the lives of the younger
Mhm.
generation. Um, because yeah, I mean, I imagine that played a role in also you sticking with karate, right? Because
Yeah.
you had this person that not only inspired you but also gave you like this positive vision of like
Yeah.
I can work towards this. Like this gives
Mhm.
me something tangible
Yeah.
of what my life can look like and like what skills I can develop and whatnot.
Mhm.
But also, I think that's also the flip side of that is despite being quote unquote like the man or like
Yeah.
strong, tough, puts on like a serious face, or maybe he does, maybe he's like a jokester. But either way, you know, there is a sensibility there
Mhm.
that we're all human and there's
Yeah.
something beautiful about feeling that appreciation that I'm
Yeah.
sure just like cuts to the heart
Oh
where
yeah. For
yeah.
sure.
Um, yeah, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a perfect way to end it.
Yeah,
As
awesome.
if there anything that you'd like to shout out or call out before we wrap up?
Shout out Sensei Straza. That's his name.
Oh, is that him? Okay,
That's his
okay, yeah,
name.
yeah.
Shout out Sensei Straza.
There you go. Shout
If
out
he's
Sensei.
if he's still doing it. Um, I mean, I feel like go create art.
I like that.
Go create art.
Go create art.
Draw something, paint
Hmm.
something, play around with something. Just have fun with it.
I love that.
Even if you're not good at it, just Just do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to second that. I actually just read a book. I finished it. I'm going to post it on my Bookstagram. It's
Awesome.
called Leisure is the Basis of Culture, which is the notion that in modern day we put such an emphasis on the like effort or hard work or productive, like quote unquote, it has to generate money or benefit me tangibly in some way, that you lose the beauty, the spirit, the things that give you life because you're so focused on like grinding or side hustle or whatever else that you never have time to appreciate like art or good or music or even just a beautiful sunset, right? And that ultimately actually opens up our horizons and actually leads to beautiful culture, like beautiful paintings, beautiful compositions of music. So I totally encourage that, and I will second it, and I'll tell people to pick up a hobby, you know,
pick up a hobby,
have it be art, and I think that's what I think a lot of people are missing because they feel like this, like I need to be productive. If I like waste my day not making money or like focusing on some sort of skill that's gonna be productive in the future, then it's like a waste. It's not. Like
it's not.
Art is a good thing in and of itself. So I'm gonna totally second that. So.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining on the 16th episode again. It was a wonderful talk. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I hope you also participated in a drink while you were listening or watching, unless you're driving.
Right.
So
never do that.
Don't do that. But yeah, if nothing else, then thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
Thank you.